A wonderful day today. I'm going to confess I've been 2 days off all week, so I'm convinced that today is Saturday, but it's not. It's Thursday. So I hope your weeks are going well. We have got a full governance committee meeting ahead of us today. So if we can go to the next slide. As we're transitioning, remember this is live streamed and it's being recorded. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions. So in the chat box, please put your name, your agency, organization, program, your title or your role, and then anything that might be helpful for the group to know about you. While y'all are doing that, I'll just tell you mine. I'm Kathy Colley Robinson. I am the chair of the education programs at Durham Tech. I am the chair of the governance committee. And we had graduation on Tuesday night. That is something helpful and fun to share. And I think we had like 500 graduates go across the stage. It was just a beautiful, joyous celebration. And I want to welcome some new folks or some returning folks today. So we have Kate Irish joining us today. She is from Durham's Partnership for Children. Hi, Kate. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thanks so much, Kathy. I'm glad to be back. I feel like I'm old and new, but just stepping into serve as interim ED with Durham's Partnership. So glad to be with everyone.
Welcome. And we also have Donna Rewalt joining us today, returning back to the governance committee. Hi, Donna.
Hi, good to be here. I'm Donna Rewalt. I'm the county extension director, and I work with Maytal, and Durham PreK resides in our department.
Thanks. Welcome back. Okay, so please do look at the chat. We have lots of introductions posted there. Welcome, welcome. Okay, and then on the next slide, we will just remember our virtual meeting protocols. So stay on mute unless you're speaking. If possible, have your camera on. If not, that's totally fine. Use the chat box for any questions or comments. As always, be patient with any technical challenges. And if you need to leave early, just send Tamara a message in the chat. Okay, so here are our objectives for today. We got a lot to talk about, y'all. We're going to start with reviewing and approving the notes from March. Then we're going to have budget conversations. So we're going to look at the 2025 budget and the set spending priorities. We are just going to review some conversations and decisions we've previously made. So the teacher compensation support payments, the seat reimbursement rates. Then we'll look and receive information about the 25 parent fees, look at enrollment for this year, consider the current application demographics for the upcoming year, and then there's a lot of great program updates that we will hear about. So many important topics for today. Okay, Linda, do we have quorum?
We have a quorum now. Yes.
Wonderful, perfect. Okay, so the only voting item that we have on the agenda thus far is to review the meeting notes from March 2025. You have already received those. So if there's any corrections or comments or anything about those, please let us know. Otherwise, we are looking for a motion to approve those.
I'm going to give you a little tour of the facility first, and then we'll come back and knock that out.
Hi, Miranda. Could you just mute yourself, please? Thank you. Oh, Alex, your mic isn't working. Okay, we have a motion in the chat to approve the minutes. Some of those technical challenges. We have a motion.
This is Beth. I'll second.
Thanks, Beth. Okay, Alex, I saw the rest of your comment. Great. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Actually, let's do it this way. If you are approving him, don't do anything. If you're not approving the minutes, show your hand or indicate some way that you're not approving. All right, it looks like we have got unanimous approval for the March meeting notes. Thank you all. Okay, next, I'm going to turn it over to Linda now to talk about the preschool, the public preschool seats in Durham.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for being here. So I'm going to just sort of get us started on our conversation. The first part of our meeting, we want to really engage you around some discussion regarding our resources so that we can be sure that we implement, once we have a budget, in a way that honors your intentions and aligns with our goals. So this year's funding allocations really tell a story of our progress as well as of really frankly of fragility. After years of strategic investments by Durham County, our public preschool supply has grown, obviously, and we're going to talk later in the meeting around our numbers. But we have had substantial growth, and we are finishing our seventh year of the program. But the data, I mean, I think, these gains really reflect that smart policies and sustained investments really can move the needle for our children and families. But the data also reminds us that this momentum is not guaranteed and that our supply of public preschool seats has not met our community's goal to have seats available for 75% of the census of 4-year-olds. That's been our longstanding goal that was created by the Early Education Task Force that was convened at the charge from the school board, the Board of County Commission, and the city council. And we're no longer the brand new kid on the block, although we think of ourselves as a new program. But the growth that we have seen in the supply is certainly worth celebrating. I mean, obviously, we're really proud and excited about that. However, without truly stable funding, the recent gains can quickly erode. We certainly know that, and we see that across the entire early education landscape in our country and as well as in our state. In Durham, we have had a lot of local investments that many communities haven't had, but we know that this job it's a constant need for us to show up and explain and educate people about why it matters. But these investments to improve access are only one part of Durham's goal. We have to continue to invest in quality. And to truly meet the family's needs for high quality programs, we have to invest in the people who make the impact on children through our intentional strategies to recruit, retain, and support teachers. And as well as in other effective strategies to strengthen the whole preschool system. Our families really come to us with their 4-year-olds having struggled to find affordable, high quality childcare. And as their children are preparing to enter kindergarten, it becomes really critical that that quality be absolutely at the center and really help prepare those children for school. We know that families are in an environment where the childcare prices have continued to rise. Nationally, they're up 29% since 2020, really outpacing inflation. And families are paying more for care than they do for housing, college tuition, or other major expenses. And we know that, and I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir with this group, but I wanted to contextualize where we are right now. We have made, as I said, we've made progress, and we hope to continue to do so, but we know that we're at a critical juncture where resources are shrinking, continuing to shrink, and priorities in our community are very, spread across many, many needs. So if you can pass it to the next slide. So just to kind of contextualize our discussion today, I wanted to share with you that you saw this slide at our March meeting. Our current budget is, a little over $7.3 million. And I want to make sure and share that that is the Durham Pre-K resources that are administered by early years to implement the public-private partnership, the seats that we've added that are braided. Some are standalone, funded completely locally. Some are braided with other resources. And there are other dollars other than that 7.3 million that are supporting the public preschool initiative. The county is funding Durham Public Schools directly, for example, for the Murray Massenburg School that opened this current school year, was their first year. The dollars for that, those 3 public preschool classrooms go directly to the school system. So they're not reflected here in the 7.3 million. We do support those classrooms by enrolling children through the universal portal that we staff, as well as through all the different activities, supporting screening and different activities. But the district money for those seats is in a separate pot. So that's not reflected here. Just wanted to be sure and make you aware of that. For fiscal year 26, we made a request, a very conservative request, even though it was an increase, a conservative request at the guidance we received from the county about this being a very tight financial year for Durham County. And many of you will recall that last year, our request in fiscal year, for the current fiscal year 24-25, our actual request was last year for $8.2 million. And, that request was not fully funded, although we did the 7.3 that we currently have wasn't a modest increase from the year before, even though we didn't get what we asked for. But anyway, so this year, of course, we're in the middle of the budget cycle. No decisions have been made. County Manager Hager made a presentation this past week to the community about her budget and where her priorities were, what she felt the commissioners needed to consider. And there are budget hearings coming up, of which we will have an opportunity to be at, as well as for the public to make their case for their priorities. And we don't have a budget yet, and I want to be clear about that. However, given Claudia Hager's words on Monday night and sharing of data about resources that are available to fund needs in Durham, we're very aware that we may not get our ask. And in fact, the current numbers that are out there, we definitely did not get our ask, but it's unclear exactly where we would land. But in that environment, we knew, with this being the last meeting of this school year, except for our called meeting in July that we would only host if we had voting items needed, we felt like we needed to have some discussion and revisit. So when the time comes and we get a budget, we can make good decisions about where to provide support and where to potentially cut activities and services. This budget request really does the basics to keep up with the increasing costs and inflation. This budget, the request that we made for 8.5, does not substantially increase seats. There is a potential for some increased seats if the braided model gets more dollars that comes into the full picture of resources. But we are not, typically when we present our budget requests to the county, we say we intend to increase at least 50 seats or whatever number is going to be each year. This year, what we said was that we need this money really to maintain and potentially make some enhancements in terms of seats if all the cards fall together. So our request for an increase was really very conservative and not where we really want to be when you consider our goal of 75% of the census. So let's go to the next slide. I want to kind of launch this conversation and by reminding you of what you did in March. So you voted in March, as you will remember, to revise. We voted on quite a few things, but the two big ticket items, we voted to revise the framework for teacher compensation support payments, to add a base payment, and we also voted to increase the reimbursement rates per child by 4%. So I want to just quickly remind you about that, and then us talk about where we might need to look at changes. Next slide. So when you'll recall that the former teacher support payment model that you voted to change, the teacher payment support model is designed to assist sites with decreasing the financial burden on the provider for teachers with higher levels of experience. So when you initially created the teacher support payment, what you said was, we are totally invested in the quality, and what we know from research is that a highly credentialed and experienced teacher makes a huge impact on children's success. And so the teacher support payment was a way to give a site an additional amount of money that was directly tied to the teacher that they hired. So we look at teacher credentials and their pay, and the teacher support payment is paid to the site to help with that teacher's salary, so that they are not, when they hire someone, they're not worried, oh, I can't hire that person because she has 25 years experience and I can't afford a salary. So that was what the original teacher support payment model has been the last few years. It did not address the fact that the base salary for a Durham Pre-K lead teacher that the provider is responsible for is significantly higher than the average salary for a traditional, typical pre-K lead teacher. So we know from our workforce studies what a typical teacher makes in a childcare program. And you remember that one of our foundational requirements in Durham Pre-K is that teachers must be paid on the Durham Public School teacher scale, so that we have pay equity across programs. Many public preschool programs across the country do not require that teachers in private sites get paid the same as teachers at public schools, but we do. So anyway, this chart just puts it in context for you. The average hourly rate for a lead pre-K teacher in a 5-star Durham center compared to the minimum required hourly rate that that a Durham pre-K teacher license makes. So, and the same is true for our instructional assistants. We didn't ever before have a support payment that supported their salaries at all, but yet we have dictated that they get paid at a living wage rate. You pass the Durham City living wage as the scale we would use. So at the last meeting, we added a base salary payment. If you'll go to the next slide, and thank you for your patience as I remind you what we did last time. To assist with all those issues that we talked about, we approved a revised framework for the teacher compensation support payment that involves two components: a base payment for non-public school sites for all lead teachers and instructional assistants, and then an experience payment that we would still have, that we've always had. It would maintain the current model, and it's based on a percentage of the salary, and it increases as the years of experience increase and their salary goes up. So basically, we enhanced our teacher payment system. So you voted to approve that. Next slide. The second thing that was a really big ticket item that you approved at our last meeting was a 4% increase, a rate increase for the upcoming school year from $14.56 per child per month to $15.14 per child per month. We know that this, for some, this sounds like a lot of money. However, based in what we know about rates, the cost to implement Durham Pre-K is significantly more expensive than traditional childcare. And we know that when we began Durham Pre-K in the fiscal year 1920, the Durham Pre-K reimbursement rate was 22% higher than the median tuition rate at that time in Durham for 4-year-olds. But as of the 24-25 school year, our Durham Pre-K rate had shrunk to only 14% higher than the median tuition rate. But we haven't lowered our standards. We haven't changed our requirements for Durham Pre-K. And so that was the grounded reason for proposing, an increase in the rate, in addition to an increase in the teacher support payment. Next slide. So just a last kind of comparison, just putting things in context. Durham Pre-K reimburses programs for a 6.5-hour day. We have higher standards than the 5-star rating in the rated license, and we require that teachers get paid on the Durham Public School scale, and we have a living wage requirement for our teacher assistants. So this just kind of shows you contextually with our approved new rate of 15.14 where we kind of are within the mix. The one thing we don't know that's in this chart, you see that second line item that says proposed subsidy rate of 14.52 for 4. If implemented by the legislature, that new subsidy rate would mean that providers would really earn very close to what they earn for Durham Pre-K, the current Durham Pre-K rate. However, this is still proposed, and I want to just be super clear that right now the current subsidy rate applies of $12.73, and the other thing to keep in mind in the context of childcare, for families who enroll their children in private childcare, if they get a childcare voucher, the voucher is typically less than what the private pay tuition rate is. And so a family often not only is called upon to pay their parent copay, which is based on their income, but they are also required by most childcare programs to pay the difference between the reimbursement rate and the private tuition rate. And so that's just another thing to keep in mind, is that current subsidy rate can be somewhat misleading. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Well, now we get to the part where you don't have to keep listening to me for too long. Reminding you that you made these decisions in March, and we believe they are good decisions. We are not asking you to come back and say, we don't think those decisions were right. What we are concerned about is how to make the program work with the resources that are provided. And if we do not get our budget request, we are recommending, the staff is recommending to you to consider allowing us to implement the new framework for the teacher compensation support payments as an absolute. But we are asking you to consider whether or not you would delay the increase in the reimbursement rate per child. What we foresee would be that based on whatever the budget ended up being, that we would try to increase the rate as much as we could, not changing what you recommended, what you passed as a reimbursement rate, but potentially having to delay the implementation of that. That's just a staff recommendation. Next slide. So the other piece of this is the way this impacts us directly is our seat allocations. So we have our seat allocations, which are the bulk of our expenses, obviously, that we pay. It's pass-through money, goes to the site, is when the child is in that seat. But the seat allocations are obviously driven completely by the budget. And it's uncertain each year, not only because of our budget, but also as we learn about the budgets of the programs we braid with. The NC pre-K budget, the school systems allocation, how much of their Title I dollars will be used for preschool. The Head Start obviously is a whole nother situation, which we talked about in March. Some of the recommendations nationally that have been going on and a lot of uncertainty around resources. But basically what's going to happen is once we get our budget in the first week in June, well, in June, not necessarily the first week in June, once the commissioners vote on a budget, which comes a little bit later in June, we will have to make hard choices if we don't get our full allocation. And we are playing in our minds with how to do that. And we want to hear from you about potential implementation. So I already mentioned that we wanted you to consider implementing the rate increase as a delayed, a later implementation, but we still have these issues of priority. And we were considering options. We know that the teacher raises as a priority, those are required. If the raises happen for teachers, we have to meet those. And so that would then impact our spending. And then again, we prioritized the base teacher support payment as an enhancement of those teacher support payments. And then we were thinking in the middle of that we would try to preserve seat allocations as much as possible by potentially delaying the increase in the child reimbursement, and then lastly, considering the staff bonuses. However, as you can see, this is just our brainstorming, and what we're here to do really is to talk and hear from you. So I'm going to be quiet and I'm happy to answer any questions, but really this is about, we need your guidance and we need to really preserve what the priorities are for the program.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, this is a lot to digest, everybody. Would love to hear your initial reactions, your thoughts. I have some notes I wrote down, but I would love to hear from you all as well. How are you feeling about all of this information?
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jason Rutherford. So when I initially looked at the presentation, I thought to consider what the actual budget looked like for the past 2 years and what sort of increases we've asked for and what sort of needs the committee has needed throughout my tenure on the board. And I kind of felt like we were being overly conservative. Like we're not asking for what we truly need. And I felt like a more aggressive ask would potentially meet what we need, right? We're in a sell and be sold environment with our administration. So I thought we should ask for at least 9 or 9.2 to really support what these centers need, right? And a bit of the rationale that I had considered was the total number of seats we need, right? If we make that 9.2x, it would create an additional 100 to 125 seats across the 32 sites. It would support retention and recruitment for the quality of teachers we're considering, and it makes it just more sustainable, right? If you ask for more than what you need, it creates an ability to negotiate. And what we're asking for does not do that for us. Some additional things I considered was the growth rate of the city. The overall budget is predicted to be 7.5% more than it was last year. Why not match that with what we're asking, right? Because what they're going to do for Durham PreK, for whatever approved, is going to be less than 1% of a $1 billion budget. So I don't see why we wouldn't ask for exactly what we need to have a higher level of sustainability. Because then if we don't, we'll come back again and we'll think more about what we need to do to maintain teachers, or what we're doing about these seats that we keep losing, or about how we're losing funding in other areas. So I think it would be in the interest to ask for more, which would be what we really need. I could give more, but that's just my general thoughts on what I've reviewed with the 2 previous county and 2 previous city budgets and 2 previous Durham pre-K budgets.
I think you're wrong, but
Thank you, Jason. And those are some excellent points
it's not gonna happen.
to look at exactly what an additional 9.2 would do and how that would really address these needs. Thank you for sharing that. Linda, is it too late to go back?
It's never too late. It's never too late. No, I mean, I think that we are definitely well positioned to make our case. And I really have wrestled with this so much, and especially after Jason so thoughtfully contacted me yesterday. I just completely agree with him. I feel that we need to consider, even once we get past this budget cycle, in the coming year, we're at a crossroads. We just finished our 7th year of programming, and we're not as far along in our goal as the task force imagined. And so, I really think, for example, we need to reconvene some of the members of the task force to, have a connection and revisit where we are, spend this next year coming up really making the case for the fact that this investment in early ed is what is going to make the difference in the long run for Durham Public Schools, for our community, for our families. And, I think we've kind of tried to be team players maybe a little bit more than we should. And I think it's really important that we really get, using Jason's word, get aggressive about what needs to happen. So I definitely agree. But in terms of this current budget, we will definitely continue to make the case and push for more than even we asked for. But I definitely am very worried and would be right now very happy to get what we asked for, but yet knowing that it's not enough.
Well, and I think it's very concerning just what we're hearing at the state and local level, at the state and federal levels regarding early childhood funding. And I think Durham has an option here to really continue setting the pace and being the forefront of what public funded pre-K can look like. I'm wondering, Linda, is there data out there that are we tracking the quality impacts of Durham pre-K on like kindergarten readiness and what the 3rd graders might be doing? Since if we're in our 7th year, aren't our graduates entering, finishing 3rd grade?
Yes. So what we are doing is we are using the resources available to us to track how children are doing in the pre-K program. In terms of longitudinal impacts, we are not able to do that presently. We continue to talk with the public schools in particular, since they obviously are the resource for that more long-term data. And we have reminded our county commissioners that a more robust evaluation and tracking in a chronological way isn't definitely an expensive investment that we really wish they would consider. I think that obviously making the case for how children are doing in the preschool is the piece that we can control at this point. But as time goes by, the desire to know more how children are doing long term is certainly very strong.
And Jason has put a comment in the chat. I think that is a great idea for us to show up to these two meetings. So May 27th is the public hearing, June 9th is the budget vote. So at the public hearing, that's what it's for. That's for the public to go voice their concerns and their opinions about what the budget should be like. So that is an excellent idea. I would love to hear, are there any other comments or thoughts about all of this?
So this is
Beth.
Beth. I agree with Jason. I think that we need to ask for what we need. I think I have the opportunity to sit on the Child Care Commission for the state and on the governor's task force, and I'm always talking about how incredible Durham Pre-K is and how this is the kind of model that we need to be supporting all across the state, because there's a lot to be proud of here, right? And we're doing so many things right, and I think that it is really important that we have fidelity to the model that we know works, as opposed to letting it get watered down over time. It really is important. And so I agree with Jason that we need to be, continuing to push for more funding and lifting up, what a truly special thing Durham has, that we've built here in Durham County. At the same time, I think that we do need to make a plan for the what ifs, right? Local, we're hearing local governments all across the state do not have the funding that they have previously had. I mean, we did get encouraging news yesterday about Head Start in RFK's testimony, that it looks like Head Start appears to be safe in the president's budget. We don't have the state budget yet, but we do know that, advocates have been asking for 220 million, and right now we have 80 million in the Senate budget. So I do think that, like, in terms of counting on other braided funding streams coming in, those aren't secure right now. And I think that we do have to have a plan in place. And I think it is really important that, I think you said it earlier, Linda, that we invest in our people, right? Because it is a childcare, the state childcare crisis is rooted in a childcare workforce crisis. And I think that, like, we have to start there. So I don't love what you're laying out, because none of us want to have to think about that sort of deferral, but I do appreciate the thought that went into it, and I would support what you have here.
Brittany, I see your hand is up.
Hey, good morning, y'all. So in listening to the conversation, and I agree with what has already been said of being more aggressive in stating the obvious. I may get on my soapbox a little bit, but I will bring it home, I promise. But as someone who became an educator right after the Great Recession in 2011, and then went into early childhood, taught in public schools during that time frame, right? Fast forward to working in early care and education right at the onset of the pandemic. And now we're here 5 years later. And I'm here before you today as a parent of a 4-year-old, and 1-year-old, who has benefited from subsidy, who has benefited from Smart Start, who has benefited from the consistent investment from our village, whether that is from institutions, friends, colleagues, family, etc. And so, like, we've seen we've have not made policy and investment gains since the Great Recession. We never made up those gains. And in early childhood, we've got to center the least of these, our young children. And I say that of, we can't let, one, accept this reality. Two, the children who are going into, my child who is going into pre-K, kindergarten, at 2020 when she was born, let's think about the political will, flexibility, innovation that happened in that time frame. And now she's about to enter that system, and we're seeing a retraction in all of that. And it's not fair to our children for not, I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room, and that has been said, but for society to sit idly by and accept this. And so the county went on record in 2017 about that Durham had the lack of capacity for pre-K and made this investment. And it's socially irresponsible to go back on that when you've gone on record. Like, now is the time to put our foot on the gas, double down on these investments, because we're going to need it the most. On with Durham Public Schools, with their current strategic plan for 23-28 for strategic plan priority 1, there's the public commitment to increase pre-K. It's there on record. And again, Durham PreK has been able to take the little bit and make it a lot, but it's never been enough. It's not enough, and we need more. And I think it is okay to say that. And we can't dance around that elephant in the room where we are dealing with systemic neglect on a day-to-day basis now in the face of both political institution and systemic abandonment. And I can't let our children, my children. So I agree with, what do we need to do to sit at these meetings, to advocate? Do we need a subcommittee to do that, to help with these priorities and then more? I'm happy to be a support and to help those in the room as well move this forward, whatever it may be. Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany. I'll leave the floor open for anybody else. So what can we do? Brittany's suggestion of a subcommittee, that I like that. These are so many excellent points that we can bring forward to the commissioners. We've got the public hearing, there's the June 9th budget vote. We can write to the commissioners. I know for some folks, it might be really helpful to have talking points or points to really highlight. Jason, Beth, and Brittany, you all raised a lot of great talking points. Oh, and Linda's putting in the chat that they can do that for us as well about the data for the program. I love this idea of a subcommittee. Who else might be interested in that? An advocacy subcommittee for Durham PreK. Beth, are you raising your hand? Do you want to be a part of it?
I do. I love advocacy.
Yay. All right. We got Beth. Who else wants to be a part of this subcommittee? Brittany, of course you're going to be on it.
Thank you, Kathy. Happy to bring Hannah and Noah around to soften the blows.
And so, Brittany, let's talk about a subcommittee. Thinking about talking points, thinking about what are the ways that we can engage with the commissioners. Is this what you're thinking about in a subcommittee?
Yes.
Yeah.
And parents as well.
For those folks who may have some kind of conflicts or constraints around the actual meetings, there's also, I do believe that our commissioners are very community minded, and, we can send you their email contact. I do think that even just hearing from people over email, it does also make an impact too.
And so Monty, yeah, I think we definitely need to get the teachers, directors, involved in that. Teachers, directors, parents, families. Okay, Jason, great.
I think an easy, low-hanging fruit idea would be to start an email campaign. Just emailing our county commissioners and getting families to email their testimonials and directors as well.
Hey, Brittany, you want to start that?
Yeah,
Excuse me. Pardon.
I can do that.
And Brittany, we can also use some of Moms Rising's platforms for that if that's helpful for story collection, for letters, for things like that, if we want to.
That'd be great. Yeah, and we can, and you know, we can connect to provide support. I mean, the reality is that we're here to support you in whatever your initiatives are. And it is a tight, you know, it is a short time frame for right now. I do think that we are both focused on right now, as well as acknowledging that there are some things we need to do in the coming year to engage our constituents.
Yeah, there's definitely an immediate need for reaching out to the commissioners, but then you're right, Linda. In the upcoming year, I think there's we've great opportunities to really remind our elected officials and just the county community of the importance of early childhood, the importance of Durham Pre-K, of why we are making this substantial investment in Durham Pre-K and in teachers and specifically. You know, if we're looking at quality, what we know about quality, it's the teachers. And without that investment in the teachers, Durham Pre-K will not be able to sustain those efforts because we will lose our teachers. Linda, another question I had, do we have any data on the Durham Pre-K teacher turnover rate relative to, and I don't know if we do, but relative to other public pre-K teachers? And that's a real specific thing.
Yeah,
track.
we don't exactly in that way, but we have a variety of ways that we track our teachers, and what we often do in the absence of other contextual data is, you know, we use those things that are available, and so we can look at what we have, and we can certainly make that available as part of the talking points.
Any other thoughts about this, you all? So some action items for this immediate need of the upcoming of the budget process. Get an email campaign going. The May 27th public hearing, it looks like that is 7 p.m. at the in the Commissioner Chambers office. You can sign up in advance if you would like to speak. And then the vote is on June 9th. It looks like they're having some other work sessions. I'm just going to put the link in the chat of what I'm reading right now, that I believe the public can attend these work sessions.
Yeah, all of the sessions are open to the public. We will have some opportunity to answer questions or engage in support of the county staff who are being a resource to the commissioners. But that public hearing on May 27th is, to my knowledge, is the place where general public has the opportunity to weigh in.
So Linda, do we need to make a decision about this priority order, or?
Well, this what we have to do. I'll just speak frankly. We have to, if we feel, I mean, it's a lot, obviously, we know that, and there's so much uncertainty. If you feel that you need more time to think about it, need more information about what is going on, we would have to call another meeting sooner than the July meeting, because the seat allocation process and contracting with sites hinges on the budget. It would be very helpful if we could get some guidance if the budget is not passed. we're not, it's not realistic for us to have you at a micro level work on building out a budget. What we really were concerned about was how to manage this tension between the reality of having to cut seats if you want us to fully implement the base teacher support payment as part of the teacher support payment package and the monthly child reimbursement. If we don't get our full allocation, and if we implement those two things in addition to other smaller things that were done to tweak the program, if we don't get our full allocation, we would definitely have to cut seats. And it's more of a timing thing. If we can get a quorum for a vote, it's more about, it would be helpful today to hear from you in the worst case scenario. Do you support the staff recommendation to delay the monthly reimbursement, or do you have some other idea, or do you want us to hold harmless seats at all costs? Which means if we don't cut seats, then we can't implement any of the things that you passed.
So essentially, you're asking us to approve a contingency plan.
Yes. But if you don't want to, which I totally understand, then we would definitely have to have a meeting in very early June. Or the other option is you would just authorize me to work with the staff to implement the best case scenario we can come up with. But my discomfort is we're not averse to making decisions. It's more about, the vision of serving more children is at odds with how we assure that we follow those quality principles and the support for our workforce, which I would argue that Durham PreK is not able to maintain quality if we don't support our workforce. I did have a conversation the other day where a person who's very early childhood focused and I respect very much said to me, well, we can't cut seats. And so I acknowledge that there are very different lenses looking at this, and how to roll this out is, it's obviously complex.
Jason, I see your hand is up.
Yes. So, and just thinking about this, and I had somebody walk in while it was being discussed. But if we don't cut seats and the budget is not approved, and or we come back with less, um, it it's not about the quality. I think it becomes about the quantity, right? Because the money is going to have to come from somewhere. Although we haven't said it, it's going to throw off student to teacher ratios because you keep seats, you lose teachers if we don't get the budget, right? Or we push a different financial burden back to the providers, and then they'll have to raise costs. So it's just a domino. But I guess we would need to discuss how we would further empower the staff to plan or contingency plan rather, right? Because we got to face the reality, right? We don't get the budget, we got to make cuts somewhere. That's just the business portion of this, right?
Yes.
That's my comment. I'm still thinking a little bit deeper into what that contingency might be.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And Alex, I see your comment as well. Doesn't cutting seats give us more leverage with the count?
And I want to be really clear that in all of our discussions, and the county is very positive about Durham PreK, they really supportive. I don't feel that there's a trend here that it's just that the resources are so tight. I think that we're acknowledging that it's a really tough time.
Alex, another comment. To what extent is it bad political press for the county if the number of slots go down? Brittany, how do we maximize current funding and program restraints while continuing to brainstorm ways to enhance the program? Advocate for more money. Oh, so many chats, yeah. Yeah, Beth, I think we have to make sure we keep investing in the workforce. We can't let this model be watered down. Once elected officials see that, has to mean fewer seats. I hope that will move them. She's okay approving the contingency now, but would also hold until June. Okay. Yeah, I keep advocating. Yeah, Linda, it's seeming like June or contingency plan right now is what folks are putting forward at this moment. I agree that we don't want to water down Durham PreK. We don't want to water down the model because that's what the model is quality, and the model is the impact that quality has on children. And we know there's a direct correlation between high quality and children's outcomes. And we've known it for 60 years now. I mean, and so I'm wondering if we have to cut seats, what leverage does that provide? Okay, so June or a contingency plan for right now.
This is, and I apologize, this is me getting on my soapbox for just 1 second. I do feel like what we have, what society has consistently done is said that in an area of like caregiving for children, but also for folks who are aging, folks who are seriously ill, that in order to reduce costs and serve more people, well, the margin that we can eat into is the people who do this work, right? And historically, those folks have been women. Historically, those folks have been women of color. And there's just some fundamental unfairness about the idea that we're willing to trade the well-being of the people who do this critical work that we as a society are willing to do that. And I think that that's what we have continued to see, and what we're pushing for at the state level is that as the emergency compensation grants run out, that we're not funding people even living wages. And so I just really think that it's important in Durham that we take a stand against that approach, that that the staff is expendable. And I know that everyone seems to be expressing the same feeling here, but I got really angry there for a second, because this is not like the margin that we can eat into should not be the well-being of the people doing this critical work.
Right.
Sorry for the soapbox.
But I mean, that's it. And I think that's what we have to keep saying over and over and over and over again, so that individuals hear that. Because I think for so long, we have not said that clearly and succinctly enough that it's made an impact. And what we're seeing is that the impact is that we're losing teachers like crazy and the system is falling apart. So got to keep saying it. June, I see your hand is up.
Yes, good morning. So I've had the honor of doing some classroom assessments recently, and I was just in a classroom yesterday, and it brought home to me what I've always known. It's the teachers that make the classroom. So it's not that the materials aren't important and the environment's important, but when I was watching these teachers, it's their passion and their concern and their warmth and their nurturing and their education is what makes the classroom. And I've been so impressed with some of these teachers I've been watching and observing. So I do think that we need to, maximize what we can do for the workforce. It's hugely important. Do I want to take away seats? No. This is a time of such uncertainty for everybody. I see it with parents. I hear it from families. People are nervous. They're nervous. They're scared. They're worried. They're concerned. We don't know from one day to the next what's going to happen. Let's be honest. And I see it with my own grown children and my grandchildren. They're making contingency plans for their futures. Because they don't really know whether they're going to have a job tomorrow, or whether we're going to be able to afford to buy groceries next week. It's a very concerning time for everybody. So let's make sure our workforce is taken care of, and let's try and preserve the seats that we have. Yes, it would be great to have more, but let's try and do those two things. I think those are the most important. And personally, I'd be in favor of having a meeting in June because I don't think we know enough at this point. We're working on we may know, we don't know, but we're not sure. And yes, I think the subcommittee is a great idea, and I would be happy to assist in some way on that committee.
Great. Thanks, June. Put your name down for the subcommittee. Thank you. Okay. So it sounds like maybe we're gonna have a June meeting.
Yeah, well, if we do have a June meeting, it will need to be very early in June, and it may, they're voting on, it's just going to be challenging because the vote of the budget, I'll have to sort of figure it out, but we can, certainly do that. I do want to, just for clarity for my own purposes. So June, what I heard you saying is that when you look at this slide that's up right now, what I heard you say is that you agree that priority should be the teacher compensation and the base teacher support payment, and you want to support preserving seat allocation. Or does that also mean that you would, in the worst case scenario, you would lean toward holding off on the per month child reimbursement and the bonuses if necessary? Is, like, when you look at this priority order list, does it appear to line up with your thinking?
Yes, so yeah, that was what I would recommend, but obviously I'm just one person, but yes.
I just wanted to be sure I was hearing you correctly.
Linda, it's Christy. I'm sitting here thinking, I hear and I understand that you need to prioritize. And I'll say, Beth, thank you. 100% agree, especially with changes that are possibly coming with the QRIS. I think it's important that Durham make a stand for the workforce. So I appreciate the support of everyone saying that. But an increase in per month child reimbursement could also impact teacher salaries. So it's not a either and or. And I think that that's important for people to realize that any money that goes in is still a way to increase teacher salaries or help assist in the rates or whatever. So I definitely would, in my mind, prioritize teacher raises and teacher support payments. But just know that if for some reason we have to make a hard decision, any of these can still help move us in that direction.
So Donna pointed out that the budget vote is June 12th, but it could change to later.
Oh, Donna just said that's the wrong date.
Oh, it's the wrong date? Okay. Okay, so she's gonna look it up.
I think June 9th. On the website, it's saying Monday, June 9th. So Linda, I think I need some clarification. So if we meet in June, we would be meeting before the budget votes, or we would be meeting after the budget vote.
Well, this is the conundrum. I mean, obviously it would be better to meet after they pass the budget. The challenge is, so what I would be trying to do is I would be trying to work out a scenario where, so we have families who are waiting to hear from us. They've enrolled, and our typical timeline, we start making offers in June. But we don't know where the seats are necessarily going to be at the moment. So what I would need to do is I would need to craft a reduced seating plan while waiting for the budget to fully fill out the rest. Does that make sense? I think that if this, it depends on what this group's pleasure is. If you're seeking to meet in June because you want to have a more definitive answer about the budget, then obviously we would need to meet after that June 9th date. If you just want more time to reflect and also for us to try our advocacy and read the tea leaves of what happens, because my experience with the budget cycle is that you get a sense of what's going on, then maybe we could meet earlier. But Xavier has tons of experience and he's got his hand up, so.
Yeah, my hand is really up for clarity. I want to make sure the discussion seems to have changed as far as advocacy and in a possible subcommittee. Are we focusing that work and those efforts on advocating for the workforce? Because there was also some discussion a little bit at the beginning about actually asking for more than the 8.5 that we talked about. Is that still on the table, or are we just saying let's stick with 8.5 and look for contingencies if that's not covered? I'm not clear on the direction of the advocacy.
Thanks, Xavier. My interpretation or what my brain is thinking is that the advocacy is for the increased funding. And with the increased funding, then we're taking care of the teachers and we're maintaining the seats. So more money, we get to do both of those things.
Mm-hmm. The contingency is more about if we don't get at least what we asked for, where would we be prioritizing for cuts? What we asked for doesn't allow for any expansion. It's really a hold-em type budget. The advocacy is about, yes, we want what we asked for, but we want even more. That's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that, because I was thinking we were moving away from that as the discussion went on. And it just makes sense that the advocacy obviously has to happen before the budget vote, and it seems like we should meet afterwards so that we know what we're really dealing with.
Okay, so I'm wondering, can we do both? Can we give you a contingency plan so that families can go ahead and get notified, right? And then also meet after the budget so that we can make more decisions for what's going to happen next, because we have no clue what the budget is going to plan out. So a contingency plan would really be, well, it could be anything in this priority order, but the top 3 items seem to be the things that are the most critical, in my opinion. I don't know. My opinion is just my opinion. So I'm just brainstorming.
The other option, as an alternative, the other option would be that we would communicate with families. We would reach out to families to say, we are in a delay environment while we wait for budget. That's the other option.
Linda, it's Christy again. Just for clarity, you said with the requested budget, we would be able to preserve the seat allocations, correct? Current ones. It just wouldn't allow for expansion.
Right. So the current request incorporates the increases that you recommended in March, but definitely holds there would be no expansion of the program, but it does allow for implementation of the things you voted for.
So it seems, I mean, I 100% agree that we always want to advocate for more, but in reality, this late in the budget game, to advocate for more, I'm just not sure how well received that'll be, but that's just my own thought, just dealing with councils and state government for many, many years. But it seems to me that if we can at least get what we've asked for, it accommodates what you've already approved and preserves the seat allocations for the next year. Does it not? Okay. I was just trying to get clarity for myself. Thank you.
I really hate the idea of putting uncertainty on the families. Because I think that sometimes people don't end up choosing Durham Pre-K because they feel uncertainty for too long, and parents start getting really anxious, right? And so I'm trying to think about how we preserve the maximum flexibility without pushing our uncertainty into people's lives who are already feeling uncertain on so many levels.
And Beth, just to add to that, I mean, they started applying in February, and we need to get them confirmation of a seat as soon as possible. June's a long time to wait.
Well, let me be clear. They already wait till June. It's just
Right.
that it would be, because we also are waiting on NC Pre-K information, and Durham County's not the only one that has a not given any definitive answers. So I want to be fully transparent that this is not just an issue with our seats, but it does make the difference between possibly July and later in June.
Right, so if we don't agree on a contingency plan right now, and we meet after the budget vote, it would be July, right? Before families would get notified, like, just because of.
Well, I would hope it would not be as late as July, but it would cause, it would be pretty, it would cause quite a few delays. But I think that we would make every effort. I mean, already if we implement a contingency plan, then if we did get the money, then we would be doing some late additions. So, no matter what we do, there's going to be some unfortunate uncertainty for families as well as our child care sites, just because this is such an unusual year.
Oh, this is hard, y'all.
It is very difficult. I agree.
So if we're reading the tea leaves, we think we could have the same amount of seat allotments as the previous year. I'm just keep coming back to these top three things. Do we feel pretty confident that these top three things will be items that we'll be able to move forward with some confidence?
I don't think I could say I'm certainly not 100% confident, but I think that based on the feedback we've received, if we do prioritize in this way, in the absence of full funding, I believe that we could at least closely preserve our seat allocations. There might have to be some cutting, but I mean, it's not obviously very, there's a lot of Toms involved in settling our stomachs as we try to, try to figure all this out. It's quite challenging.
All right, committee, what are y'all feeling? Would you like to approve this contingency plan, this priority order that's in front of you, and meet in June for next steps? Do you want to just hold off until June? How's the group feeling? And if we decide to do this priority order, we would want to vote on that, just right, Linda, to make sure it's official.
It's not required, but it would be helpful.
Okay.
So if we meet in June, then we would be revisiting this priority list here when we meet then. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we would know the budget at that point.
Yeah.
But theoretically, if we get more money, right? This doesn't actually mean that having put a contingency plan like this into place now actually did any harm. It would just mean that when we met in June, we would figure out how to reallocate moving down the priority list and also if we have more spots, right? So there's no damage that's done by doing this now. It just gives a little more certainty. And then if we did schedule a meeting in June and we were successful in our advocacy, we could add on more. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you would definitely have a better analysis of, the impact of the decisions you made in March. And it's always our goal as we enter into negotiations. Our goal is to create as many seats as possible through negotiation in the braided environment. And, so like if you said to me, how do you usually do the budget? Well, obviously one of the challenges is that we're balancing our estimates of enrollment and attendance because things change all the time with the resources of our other partners. So if you met in June, you would have the opportunity to have definitive numbers that you could then basically be checking my work, which I welcome, and giving feedback about what you'd like to see.
And then I think alternatively, we could hold that conversation at our July meeting, which is already scheduled.
Yeah, the July meeting is scheduled as an as needed in case of, because we don't know. I mean, for example, if NC Pre-K, I mean, their pictures looked pretty grim too. And, in terms of uncertainty and all that, if an unknown happens, the July meeting in years past, we've had it scheduled if needed. We've only had to actually hold it twice in the last 7 years.
So, Linda, would it all make your job easier to have this contingency plan, to know what you're sort of working towards, and at the same time, we would still be advocating for more money in the hope we might get it? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
it would be better to have the contingency plan and also be advocating for more money, and then maybe meet in June to decide what to do after the budget. Yes? No?
Yeah, I mean, having the contingency plan would give guidance, would basically allow us to move forward with our plans. For example, we have not told sites anything about the passage of the increase in child reimbursement rates because we didn't know what the budget was. And we still wouldn't do that yet because this contingency plan would give me guidance from you that we need to hold off until we see the budget, in terms of that as an example. But it would allow me to map out where we would cut seats in order to keep the teacher raises and support payments whole. So yes, it would make my life easier. However, we're not about easy around here. We want to do whatever your pleasure is, but it certainly would allow us more time to plan, more time to take a deep dive in the data, and we're all about collaborative decision making. It would allow us an opportunity to engage our team more deeply.
I would, this is Jason again. I support the idea of a contingency with a potential pivot should we get an increased budget, right? Because you will be able to plan, give confidence to the sites, as well as still prepare for the ask for more money, right? I think that's what I'm hearing. I support that, right? Your ability to plan as well as to create a pivot plan to ask for more money. I think that's what we're trying to say. Help me out there.
Yeah, I think that's what we're hearing. And Beth gave a thumbs up. So that seems the pleasure of this group. And if so, I would entertain a motion to make that official.
So I would move that we support the contingency plan with a pivot plan.
advocacy.
Yes.
Thanks, Jason. All right, we've got a motion. Give a second.
I have Brittany second.
Thanks, Brittany. Okay. All in favor of this, don't do anything. Stay as you are. But if you're not in favor of this, indicate that in some way. Raise your hand, come off mute, put it in the chat. Not seeing anything. All right, so that motion passes then for this contingency plan that you see in front of you with the pivot plan, should things change. And so I think let's clarify if things, so the next steps, we're meeting in June or we're meeting in July? And does that depend on what happens with the budget? Okay, let me ask a different way. If we just wait and meet in July, how do people feel about that? Are you okay to wait until July? With an already scheduled meeting?
If we were to get more funding, then I feel like it would be better to go ahead and meet sooner so we could start making plans for that additional funding. But if not, then I think waiting till July would be fine. I don't know if that may not be at all helpful, but if the status quo, like if we get what you're potentially thinking, right? Yeah, I agree, Brittany. Maybe we could do that.
Yeah. All right. So let's put a hold for a date in June. And then we'll go from there. And if we don't need to meet in June, we'll for sure stick with our July date.
Okay, so I'm going to just throw out a suggestion of the second Thursday in June, which is the 12th, which would be after the vote on the 9th. We can put a hold. We could do the same time at 9:30, or we could do it differently, whatever your pleasure is.
How does that work for everybody? June 12th.
I agree with that.
Right, Jason? Thanks. Is that, Beth has given a thumbs up.
Just Kathy, that is the Tate Noble Women's Conference for Durham that day. I don't know if any of this group, but that's a huge thing in Durham. So just a comment.
Is it all day, Christy?
It's looks like 9:30 to 2:30. I don't know if that implies to anybody. I was just looking at my calendar.
Right. Yeah.
It's a big thing that the chamber does.
Yeah. The other option would be to consider a day other than Thursday if you wanted. The third Thursday in that month is Juneteenth, so we don't want to meet that day. Because the 19th is a holiday. I don't know what June 10th looks like for you guys.
That's fine with me.
I know we're all out, Linda.
We are?
We are. We have our directors meeting in person. On June. It was supposed to be.
I mean, Linda, it sounds like the 12th looked for most people. I just wanted to mention that in case.
Yeah, no, I
people
appreciate you
decide that.
mentioning
Yeah.
it. And if we're doing it virtually, maybe some folks could
Yeah.
helicopter in. Well, let's stay with the 12th. What I hear you saying is that we'll meet on, I'll go ahead and schedule the 12th along with this July meeting that's already scheduled. We will hold it if needed. We'll move forward with this guidance And also I will commit to keeping you informed as we learn new things. I'll send you regular updates if there's things to update about. In addition, we'll be working with we'll communicate transparently to the whole group the work of the folks who've indicated an interest in the advocacy committee. We'll make sure everybody knows about the opportunity and strategies that we hope everyone will take up.
Thank you all. This was a hard conversation. Thank you all for your time and energy into that. I think we are so past break time.
Yeah, we are, but I do think, to get people refreshed, maybe if we did go ahead and take the break and then come back, what we'll do, Joy and Rachel have some great data to share with y'all, but what we can do is have them breeze through and just hit the highlights of that. You can look at it and send questions, and then, we'll end on time for sure, but it seems to me like probably a break's still a good idea. That's up
Okay.
to the group, obviously.
Yeah, let's do a 5-minute break. So it's 11 right now. We'll get started again at 11:05.
Oh. Why does this table sound like a bridge? True.
All right, it's 11:05. Let's resume.
Hi, everyone. The next thing on our agenda is to talk about the parent fees. And before jumping into that, this chart just reminds you of what when the parent fees come into play, which is at 400% of the federal poverty level, which sounds like a lot, but is not. So just wanted to give you this context. So the parent fee kicks in at 2% of a family's gross monthly income when they're 400% of the federal poverty level or above. You can go to the next slide. And this chart just shows you the annual starting salary for some various local positions. Again, just to give you some more context for the parent fee and when it becomes effective and stuff like that. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I know we're short on time. So if you can go to the next slide. So we wanted to share with you the what we've seen in parent fees. As you can see, we have seen a steady increase in the number of families assigned a parent fee over the past 3 years. This year, this current school year, we've had 124 families with a parent fee. And the median parent fee is $275, which is also increased since 2 years ago in 22-23. Just a reminder of how parent fees work, they offset the cost that we spend on Durham Pre-K from local dollars because we subtract the assigned parent fee from the reimbursement rate. So the current year's rate is $14.56. So if the parent fee is $200, the provider would receive $200 from the family and $12.56 from us to make up that $14.56 rate. And so the impact is the bottom row there, the total contributed to the budget. So in the current school year, we're projecting $271 and 931 cents being paid by parents directly to providers. So that means that's that amount of money that we are not paying out of local dollars. And you can see that there's been a steady and increase over the past 2 years in that. The reason that this chart only goes back to 22-23 is because before that, the fees were waived due to COVID, except the very first year of Durham Pre-K. And that was just so long ago, it was not a useful comparative tool. So just that's why that's only the past 3 years. Linda, I don't know if we want to ask if there's any questions or you just want me to keep on moving.
No, we are short of time, but I do want to just say that as we are projecting costs, we do conservatively estimate what we think the revenue will be from the parent base for the future budget year. So for 25-26, we have, done an estimate, and we do deliberately try to make it conservative because we don't want to count on it. We do, as you will recall, as a group, you prioritize families that their children may have more needs and that may come from families with lower income. So the program is open to every family, but we do have a priority to assure that we are serving families with lower income also. So we keep a close eye on the demographics of, the income of families so that we can be sure that we have a program that's quite diverse across all of our seats. And as you have a chance to look at this in the next days, obviously, anytime, feel free to reach out with questions.
Thanks, Linda. I think you can go to the next slide then. We're going to switch topics. So we're going to look, this is a chart showing the enrollment of, the allocations and the enrollment for locally funded seats. So these are seats that are funded through the local dollars, through the budget that we were talking about earlier. Again, looking back over the past 3 years. And you can see that we have seen a slight dip in the enrollment percentage as compared to last year at 91% this year. Last year was 94%. And then 2 years ago, we were at 91%. So a slight decrease, but not major, not concerning, dropping below where we've been before. The next slide shows our overall public pre-K numbers. So this includes the seats funded by local dollars, but also seats not funded by local dollars. So NC pre-K seats at non-Durham pre-K sites, Head Start seats that are not Durham pre-K funded, seats at DPS, including Title I, EC, and their Montessori programs. And this is each year we work with our partners. This is a point in time count that we work with them to get their allocations and enrollment numbers. So it's not something we do on an ongoing basis. It happens sometime between December and February. It kind of varies each year, just depending on when we can get the most accurate numbers available. And that's usually the peak time of enrollment, is that middle of the year time. Linda, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say that obviously there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm sure that members, would have questions about, what influences enrollment rates, what causes the differences and all that kind of stuff. And if that's something that you want to have further discussion about, I would suggest we definitely do that in the September governance meeting, since we didn't really have time today.
And the September meeting, we'll have final enrollment for the whole year.
Yes, well, for Durham pre-K,
Not for
these
this.
not for this. So it is a very challenging process. You would think it would be very straightforward to get enrollment information across programs, but as you can imagine, with different systems and everything, it is quite challenging for all the partners to come together to share their numbers. And so we do that basically we do it once a year, and that's why Joy's careful at the top to put when those numbers were pulled, when they're from. So they wouldn't be different in September. Our Durham pre-K numbers we would update for the end of the year, but they wouldn't be different. But we would probably we're in the process right now of doing parent surveys, and we would have more information to contextualize this information.
Yeah, I would like for us to talk more about this at the September meeting, for sure.
So noted.
And then the next slide just shows, again, a different, where we get those numbers that Linda showed earlier, where we're at 36%, 40.5%, just to show you, this is the chart on the previous slide is how we determine the total number of public pre-K seats available each year. We look at the census for the number of 4-year-olds, and that's how we determine this percentage. So you can see that we have seen this increase and what that looks like in real numbers instead of just percentages, and where we are towards that goal. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Osborne. She's our Durham pre-K data manager, to talk about the 25-26 application numbers.
Thanks, Troy. Good morning, everyone. Excited to speak with you today about our 25-26 family application. We're very excited that we are receiving more applications so far this year than in previous years. So as you can see on this slide, the 25-26 school year is the blue line. So it's at 7% more than this time last year and 5% more than this time 2 years ago. Those are based on numbers from May 2nd, so just a couple of weeks ago, but excited to see the trend there of higher number of applications coming in. You can go to the next slide. Wanted to share with you a bit about the demographics of those applicants. And so first, looking at race, we can see the largest category being children identified as Black or African American, followed by children who are white or European, and then some various other races there with smaller percentages shown in the table and in the pie chart. Thank you. Looking at child ethnicity, we've got about a quarter of children identified as Latino or Hispanic, and then of course the other 3/4 as not Latino or Hispanic. These numbers are very much, all of these numbers, very much in line with what we've received in previous years, which is exciting to see given the current circumstances as we've been talking about. So these are very much on track with what we've seen again in previous years. Next slide, please. Lastly, we'll look at child's home zip code. And so we have a variety of home zip codes represented. The largest ones being there, the 27703, 27713, and 27704. We're looking at these data points regularly and monitoring and tracking them over time. So excited to see the progress there as applications continue to come in. Any questions about all of that? Or Linda, anything we want to add?
Just, you know, that we're always really trying to slice and dice the numbers to provide insight to the staff as they're planning. And the zip code issue has been one where we're just really trying to have it drive our planning for outreach and our work with community engagement. So
thank you, Linda. I will turn it back over for some program updates. Thank you.
okay, we're gonna have Tamara Stevens, our Durham Pre-K director, excuse me, Tamara Mathis. Sorry, Tamara. Oh goodness, that shows you how long we've been working together. To go over our program updates. Tamara, we can't hear you. Is there a
The Zoom room's muted.
Oh, wait, further. Okay, can you hear us now?
yes, thank you.
All right. Just some quick updates about the application and outreach for 2025, 2026. The application opened on February 1st. And so by the beginning of May 2025, we've had 1,158 applications that are in progress or under review. Our first Rope and Roll event for 2025-26 was March 15th, held at Durham Tech. Thanks again to Durham Tech. So at that event, we had about 20 resources, about 44 families were served, and we had a direct assistance was provided for at least 23 families with the Durham PreK application, and bilingual developmental screenings for the ASQ were available on site as well. Our second Rope and Roll was done on April 26th at Eastway Elementary. Thank you, DPS. And so you can see the vendors that we had listed there. About 32 families signed in, but there were probably more there, but that's only 32 actually went to the sign-in desk and actually filled out, sign-in paperwork. We're sure more were there, just didn't capture the sign-in. A virtual bilingual family info session was held on May 7th. 64 people registered and about 54 attended. Any questions about application and outreach? Next up, we'll have Maggie Weston talk about our apprenticeship program.
Yes, so the exciting update we wanted to share with you all is that we are working with Durham Tech. Thank you, Kathy, to launch an Early Educator Academy this summer. We received a grant of $10,000 from Duke Do Good, their employee giving campaign, to be able to have the resources to try this new strategy. Our goal here is to better support individuals who are interested in a job in early childhood education, but not yet working in the field, to be able to go through the steps and requirements needed to then be ready to work in early childhood, to make it a fully subsidized, no cost to participant on-ramp to a job in early childhood education, which of course we're hoping then that they are hired as an apprentice in one of our partner employment sites so that they can continue receiving support to grow in the profession and to complete a full certificate or degree at Durham Tech. So in this first round, we have capacity right now for 10 participants in our first academy. We've already received actually 40 applications to participate in the academy. So I'm trying to figure out if we can find some more money really quickly, honestly, to be able to support some additional participants because there's such an interest, specifically in this bilingual format that we're offering. So we're excited. I think we're going to learn a lot and look forward to doing more of these in the future. We hope, because there's clearly a demand.
All right, thank you, Maggie. Next up, we'll have TA update. Nita?
Sorry, I'm here. I was trying to find the unmute button.
Okay.
So I want to share briefly that you can see the numbers on the slide. So these are the TA site visits that were for March and April. We have 27 sites that we provide technical assistance for. And so we are working with 83 teachers. That's a lot of teachers. So you see the visits for March and April. The visits, if you're curious, it is a couple of things. We're coaching around the class measure, which is our quality system that we use for the classrooms, but we're also modeling and helping them deal with behaviors in the classroom. We meet in person and virtually. So a virtual visit could be myself talking to the teacher about their PD plan and the goals that they have in the classroom. Sometimes it's just an opportunity for them to vent, to talk about their stressors in the classroom. So mental health is very important to Durham PreK. So we do allow the teachers opportunities to have time to reflect on their classroom, to reflect on their teaching practices. And we try really hard to partner with them to not have them feel that we're coming in to catch them doing something wrong. We really support the teachers in quality interactions by providing the next bullet, PD offerings. So we make sure the trainings that are offered to Durham PreK teachers are going to help them be better in the classroom. So we look at behavior management, how to handle assessments and observations, how to do documentation through Smart Teach and Teaching Strategies Gold. How do we help with classroom management? And a big push for 2024, 2025 was STEM, really encouraging them to do activities in the classroom around science, technology, engineering, and math. And then we have a host of other trainings that we do. So you all know that we do the big Ask conference annually, but we have trainings that are on our training calendar, and we have a DPK code that we give the teachers to allow them to do trainings for free. So every teacher, lead, and assistant have a professional development plan, and we're real clear that there needs to be goals around classroom instruction, around class. And then we allow them, a lot of them are in school. We have teachers working on their BK licenses, teachers working on associate degrees. So we honor that. We lift that up. We really want this program to continue to grow. And I think if you have a solid PD plan, it ensures that quality is going to happen in the classroom. That's a big piece for us. I listed for you all capacity building. These are programs that are wanting to apply the next RFA, and we provide coaching, mentoring, and we allow the capacity building directors and teachers to participate in free training. So we do include them in that. And the capacity building, we meet once a month. We meet with the teachers, and they do have a pre-K class assessment done in their classrooms. And so we're really excited that these sites that are, and they are aware that that doesn't mean they're automatically going to be selected for Durham PreK, that they still have to go through the RFA process. But I think having them as a part of the capacity building really strengthens their teacher's role in the classroom. So it's a win-win. And then lastly, the post-class assessments are underway for all Durham PreK classrooms. So every classroom, Durham Public Schools, Head Start, and private sites are having a post-class assessment so we can look at the numbers on how they did in the fall compared to the spring or end of the year. Did this TA that we offer support them? Are we seeing the quality interactions that we want to see? And then lastly, good news to share, North Carolina AEYC provided 5 scholarships for Durham PreK administrators to participate in the adult mental health first aid. So that's huge. We had 5 directors participate. It was free, but we are really lifting up. We want the directors to be able to support their teachers and to identify and recognize when there may be some, mental health issues, because that affects the children. Frank Porter Graham partnered with Durham PreK. We had Taiwan visitors who were attending the International Inclusion Institute asked to visit a center. Durham PreK partnered with Randy's 5-Star Academy. And we had 2 visitors from the National Taiwan University come and tour their classroom, and I heard it was very successful. And their goal was to observe an EC inclusive environment. So kudos to Randy's 5-Star for being brave enough to allow 2 people to come to their center to tour and kind of see what work we're doing in the classroom. And speaking of that, Frank Porter Graham provided 5 free scholarships for our DPK teachers to attend the UNCFPG International Inclusion Institute. They attended the pre-conference. All 5 teachers that we selected, directors were able to accommodate because it was during the day at the Friday Center in Chapel Hill, and they provided coverage. And the teachers, we've already heard feedback on how honored they felt to be selected, to be able to go to a that whole thing, the International Inclusion Institute is huge. So for teachers to be able to go to that, I just want y'all to understand this is huge. And it really was nice. And I will share with Linda and Monty later. I'll forward you the emails from the teachers so you can see and read the impact. It may be worth sharing with the governance later, the impact that the inclusion workshop had on them. And then lastly, Christy Farmer joined the Durham PreK team in March. She's our newest BK quality enhancement coach. Sorry, I was talking fast. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, and we'll follow up about the Institute and professional development in our newsletter. We plan to highlight some of those things, which kind of brings me to, I know we're at the end of our meeting, but I wanted to share with this group that if you haven't signed up for our social media, our team has been doing a fantastic job of highlighting our apprentices, highlighting our teachers, highlighting different events. So you should definitely check out our social media and, of course, the newsletters. We have a community and a teacher newsletter, and we hope that you will check it out because this is where, in particular, we spend time lifting up things in more depth than sometimes we can cover in this meeting. Okay, thank you very much, Nita. I'm going to basically just really quick say that our partnership with Durham County with the Laughing Manitos program is coming to an end this school year, and it's been a great partnership. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to fill you in on some information with that. We do have a upcoming in-person workshop for parents, and you have the information in your packet, and we encourage you to tell parents about it. Next slide. Okay, to finish this up, I just wanted to say you have on your schedule the July 17th meeting. I will send out information adding this June meeting that we've discussed today. And then I just wanted to lift up that our first meeting for the 25-26 school year is September 18th. We will meet in person at the Jim and Carolyn Hunt Early Childhood Resource Center at Briggs, and we will have a great program for you. So we'll hope you'll be sure and get that on your calendar. We'll be sending out the links for the meetings for next year in the coming days.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everyone. So we'll just need that concludes our meeting for today. We just need a motion to adjourn. Oh, it's nice to see all of your faces.
This is Alex. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Alex. Do we have a second?
Brittany, second.
Thanks, Brittany. Okay, everybody. We'll see you again in June. We hope to see you also doing some great advocacy efforts. More details will be coming about that. You have got links to contact the commissioners if you so feel moved, as well as to attend some of the hearings. So enjoy the rest of your week.